Educational Authority and the Traverse City Light and Power Board coming up. For the Human Rights Commission, I just want to highlight that we need city residents particularly for that board. So anyone interested in serving, please reach out to my office and we'd be happy to talk to you about that. And then just a couple of quick community updates. My office will be holding the public accuracy test for the presidential primary election, and that's going to be on Tuesday, February 7th. Excuse me, that's Tuesday, February 6th at 2 p.m. here in the Governmental Center. And then also a reminder for individuals who are on the permanent ballot list that they need to, of course, complete a ballot selection form, whether you're on the permanent ballot list or permanent absentee ballot list. And that's something that's unique to this particular closed presidential primary, that you have to make a selection. And then lastly, I just want to remind everyone sitting up here to please speak into the microphones, and that's all that I've got.
Benjamin, could you give us a quick note on what that test is? I don't.
Sure. So we will be conducting a public accuracy test on all of the, on a sample of the election equipment that the city clerk's office uses at this upcoming presidential primary. We did a preliminary accuracy test last week where everything was tested, and it essentially is a review and a test of election equipment used to tabulate votes. And it uses a sampling of ballots that tests every valid and invalid combination of votes that could possibly be cast at an election. And that's in compliance with Department of State regulations.
Thank you so much for that, and we'll let you just roll right along into the consent calendar then.
Okay, the purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed from it and placed elsewhere on the agenda for individual consideration by the commission, and such requests will be automatically respected. If an item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. Item 1, consideration of approving the minutes of the January 16 and January 22nd, 2024 meetings of the City Commission. Approval recommended. Item 2, consideration of authorizing a purchase order for replacement of the rear outrigger sub-base assembly for a bucket truck used by Traverse City Light and Power. Approval recommended. Item 3, consideration of authorizing a change order to the 2022 South Garfield Sidewalk Improvements Project contract to reflect an increase in an annual project cost of actual project cost of $6,555.21 based on field conditions. Approval recommended. Item 4, consideration of authorizing a confirming purchase order for diesel fuel for city operational use. Approval recommended. Item 6, consideration of declaring Police Captain Keith Gillis's duty weapon as surplus and authorizing it for sale at market value to Captain Gillis. Approval recommended. Item 6, consideration of authorizing a purchase order for the replacement of the surface wash pump, screen wash pump, and rapid mixer for the water treatment plant. Approval recommended. Item 7, consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing the issuance of a new small distiller license to Right Brain Beverage LLC, and consideration of authorizing the city clerk to issue the related registration allowing the operation of the license at 225 16th Street. Adoption and approval recommended. And finally, item 8, consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing the transfer of ownership of Class C and SDM liquor licenses with outdoor service, Sunday sales, AM/PM, and dance entertainment permits from Innovo Breakwater Apartments LLC to Cut and Run TC Garland LLC, and consideration of authorizing the city clerk to issue the related registration allowing the operation of the licenses and permits at 155 Garland Street. Adoption and approval recommended.
Thank you. Is there any commissioner that would like anything removed from the agenda? Seeing none, anyone with the public? All right. Well, I just wanted to take a moment, even though we've got a couple of months left, to say that the sale of the deputy or of the captain's duty weapon is something that we do often in retirement, but I just wanted to say that we're going to put that on the consent calendar here, but not without wanting to say a note of thanks to Captain Gillis for all his years of service. I know he's been very helpful in a lot of our neighborhoods, so that's appreciated. So with that, I will take a motion for the consent calendar as it is. Or we sit.
Motion to approve the consent calendar as is.
Support.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you all. Moving on to our, oops, sorry, my screen's jumping all over the place, to our old business here, which is a consideration of filling the city clerk's operations coordinator position. And I will turn this over to you, Liz.
Thank you, Mayor Shamro. So this was some of the work that we were able to complete between my tenure in Missaukee County and when I started here on the 3rd of January. I took a number of Zoom calls with our Human Resources Director and our clerk to move along something that had been in process, a position that had already been budgeted. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to the clerk so you can explain the position.
Sure, thank you. I'll just briefly summarize what's in the memo. This is, we're moving forward with asking for authority to fill this position, as the city manager mentioned. And some of the reasoning for that is there's a number of different areas that have expanded in terms of scope that in order to responsibly fulfill those, we need some additional capacity. That includes for areas including risk management. We have over $1 billion, that's with a B, of insurance coverage that we're required to, we require of others in order to best insulate the city from risk. There's a lot of insurance documentation that needs to be reviewed to make sure that that insurance coverage is in place. We lack the capacity currently to properly do that. And as we all know, insurance is one of those things that you don't need it until you do. And so there's a big gap there right now in terms of that piece of our team's responsibility. With respect to licensing, we've had, just in the last few years, over 1,600 hours a year in licensing activity added to my team. I will note that some of that, of course, relates to cannabis, for which the city is going to be receiving a substantial amount of additional revenue. But there's 1,600 hours there that we need to reallocate among the team in order to balance workload and properly be able to carry these things out. With respect to elections, we now have no reason absentee voting in Michigan, which is fantastic, but it has shifted a lot of the demand related to elections to actual clerk's offices that was existing before at polling places. We're seeing 200% to 300% increases in absentee voting activity. I can tell you across the country that doesn't shift back to polling places. It's just going to continue to ramp up. And so we've got up to six people that we'll be adding surrounding election season, so temporary employees that need to be, we need their work properly coordinated, and we need one person on my team to effectively coordinate that work. Want to note that while it's fantastic, we have additional transparency requirements where folks can track their absentee ballot applications and ballots in real time. Starting in 2024, there's legislation that prescribes tight turnaround time to reach out to voters in multiple methods if there's issues with respect to their absentee application or ballot. This will help with that. And then one other area that's going to be a focus of this particular position is coordinating the appointment process for all of our city boards and committees and helping initiate the onboarding process for our board and committee members. So those are a few of the things. But that's it in a nutshell, and I didn't want to get into an exhaustive summary, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Go ahead, Mitch.
Yes. Is there a candidate in mind for this position, or would this be posted and then filled?
There is a candidate that I have in mind, yes.
Great. And that comes from it being an experienced position of lots of work that's already being done, but consolidated into one position.
Right. Yes.
And I just wanted to kind of, both because a lot of our newer commissioners joined while we were kind of going through some changes, as well as our newer commissioners that were just elected. Typically, when we have new positions, they're in the budget, and then they're approved in the budget, and they're hired after the budget. But as everybody probably remembers, our last budget was done with interim, and so this is kind of all of us catching up right now. So as they're moving through the budget process, any new positions will likely be presented to us as part of the budget and kind of approved and discussed as part of that process versus theoretically approved and then hammered out later. So that, or it'll be brought to us as an amended budget item and have that discussion separately. So just wanted to point out that this is a little bit different than the usual process. Yeah.
So does that mean that this position was included in the 23-24 budget?
Yes.
Thank you.
Preliminarily, yes.
Yeah, it was. Yes, thank you.
I mean, you know that stuff off the top of your head better than I do, Benjamin.
Well, especially this one, right?
So do we have any other questions? If not, I would take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the City Commission authorize filling the position of City Clerk Operations Coordinator.
Second?
Thank you, Jackie. So we got a motion by Mai and a second by Jackie. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, any final comment from the commission? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
And I'm not used to doing this on my computer. I messed myself up. Boo-boo-doo. Moving on then to consideration of moving into closed session. Just for the public, when we do this, we will make the motion now, but we would not go into closed session until after final public comment. So we will conduct the rest of our business before we would go on this if the board so moves. So go ahead, Lauren.
This is an item that's ongoing litigation in federal district court in the Western District. And the purpose of the closed session is to consult with our insurance defense counsel on trial and settlement strategy and an attorney-client memorandum, which I provided to the commission last week directly.
Great. And I'm looking for a motion.
Move that the city commission enter into closed session immediately following the public comment portion of the agenda to discuss an attorney-client privileged communication and possible trial and settlement strategy in connection with 326 Land Company v. City of Traverse City as authorized by MCL 15.268E and H.
Second?
Thank you. All right, we've got a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Wilson and a second by Commissioner Anderson. It's procedural, so we don't usually have any discussion, but does anybody have any? All right.
Apologize, I think she was going to move to make the
I think
motion.
you guys, you both kind of jumped, so I appreciate that willingness to help. Seeing none, I'll call, roll call vote.
Yes, great. Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes.
Commissioner Stanley,
Yes.
Commissioner Treadwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Werner,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson,
Yes.
and Mayor Shamrow.
Yes, okay, motion passes. And next item of business. Does not. Keep getting the voting coming up on my screen here. Okay, so next is consideration of a funding agreement with the DDA for its grant funds to cover the cost of a demolition of a site. So I will hand that over to you, Liz.
Thank you, Mayor. So attached, you'll find a communication from DDA Development Authority CEO Gene Dorenzi indicating that the DDA has been awarded an environmental grant from the Michigan Department of Great Lakes and Energy for cleanup efforts on West State Street. The grant will cover abatement, demolition, markup expenses associated with the work. And attached is the memo from Gene. And I am a bit newer to this particular project, so at this time I would direct any questions specific to this to CEO Dorenzi.
And I would just say too that this is not in connection or promise of any other projects. It's a piece of land that the city owns with an abandoned, used to be, not abandoned, a no longer in use dry cleaner on it that was, had some chemical issues and such. So this is to tear it and clean it, and anything else is still a matter of a lot of public discussion. Mitch?
So I suppose this could be a matter of the anything else, but I noticed that this is for demolition, removal of waste, and abatement of asbestos. It has nothing to do with removal of subsoil contamination. Considering that this was a dry cleaner, I think it goes without saying that there's a trichloroethylene TCE contamination plume underneath it, since that is basically a case of any other dry cleaning establishment. And regardless of the purpose of this piece of land going forward, that is something that would need to be cleaned up before we could have future development.
Ms. Dorenzi, did you want to?
Good evening. My name is Jean Dorenzi, CEO of the Downtown Development Authority. And Commissioner Treadwell, you are correct. So this is one piece of the grant that we received, the $900,000. The rest of the grant will be used for environmental work associated with the properties that were identified. So we have to demo first, But the next phase will be the environmental cleanup for this site.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Tim.
Is there a timeline for the Eagle grant that the money would not be available if this work doesn't commence right away?
I believe it's a 3-year grant that we have. We have to utilize the grant within a period of time.
And when does the clock start?
We received this year. No, I'm sorry, 2023.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Tim.
So just comment then, it's not a question, but to me it's premature. The money's not going away, and if a parking garage doesn't happen on this site, or these sites, plural, then yes, these have been torn down, but chances are it'll take several years before we as a city figure out what to do with the property. And having buildings that can be occupied and used in the interim, to me, is more valuable than just a site that's has raised buildings. So to me, it's premature.
Go ahead, Heather.
Yeah, I agree with that. It seems that we need to be farther along in our discussions and have more information about what's going in there before we level the site, leaving a big, dirty, empty hole. There's going to be a lot of disruption this summer also on the parkway, and then we're going to be disrupting on this main thoroughfare through downtown Traverse City, more noise, more traffic obstruction. Since the grant goes for 3 years, I support waiting.
Just a question, how long is the estimated demolition, and there's a raised issue of other construction going on? Projected timeline?
1 month.
1 month.
And the other component is on the dry cleaner. It's not an occupiable building.
Mhm.
You can't occupy the dry cleaner building because of the environmental.
But could the cleared site be used for parking or equipment staging?
Yes.
Jackie?
I am going to be voting against this. I likewise have concerns about the timing. I think we have had at least 2 incidents where we've had demolition and cleared lots along Front Street that were empty for years, and I would be reluctant to see us create another empty space in our downtown, particularly with everything else that's going to be going on traffic-wise and congestion-wise in the summertime.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I'd be more
Tim.
concerned about if we push the timeline back, the increase in price, and how long is the, if we kick the can, would we expect the price to go up for this?
As you saw in the document itself, the proposal was $193, so everything seems to be going up based on when the bids go out. And I know that the environmental doesn't seem, but to me, we need to improve the land that we have and improve the environmental conditions in which we know are there. So that's the purpose of the grant itself. It's not so much the demolition, but it definitely is to achieve improved environmental conditions on the property itself.
Other comments or questions? Mitch?
Yeah, echoing what Mayor Pro Tem Wilson said, I would be concerned that we are in a period of higher inflation, though it does seem to be going down, that waiting for a project that's already lined up would incur additional costs. Plus, you can say that tearing us down would leave an empty spot. If a building is not being occupied and cannot be occupied, then that is by default an empty spot. But if it's changed into, at least for a time being, a vacant piece of land, then that could be used for parking, it could be used for equipment staging that is not happening elsewhere. It could be potentially used for tents as in a street fair that then doesn't have to obstruct a street.
I have a question about this. This is a now public-owned building that's not abandoned, but not occupied. The liability for that would fall onto the city, correct? I know we have insurance, but that's our liability, correct? Yes. So, go ahead, Heather.
Just to get back to the cost, it says here on page 86 of our packet that to cover the cost increase of any grant-related activities, a $125,000 contingency was included in the grant. So there is extra money if we were to wait another year or half a year.
Commissioner Stanley?
I think Jean was going to speak to that.
Mm.
But not, we have a contingency that would be for the demolition, so you would have to dig into what you would use for environmental. So think about the 900,000 you have for environmental that you want to get to the conditions. So we have asbestos, we have lead-based paint, but the environmental conditions in the ground, the more money that we have for that to clean up, the better.
That's what that's usually referring to, isn't so much, oh, the digger came in 50 grand more than we thought. It's, we found something, and that's a big oopsie that we need to take care of.
I'm willing to make the motion,
Thank
but
you.
that's like 3 paragraphs. Does everyone wanna
I-
sit and wait for me to read it?
Yeah.
I can read it if you'd like,
Benjamin,
or
would you
anyone
like to read
can,
it?
however you want to do it.
Thank you.
I'm sorry?
No, he said Miigwetch, he said yes.
Okay, that the mayor and city clerk execute a funding agreement with Traverse City Downtown Development Authority, DDA, which articulates that the DDA will reimburse the city of Traverse City using grant funds it received from the Michigan Department of Great Lakes Environment and Energy for the West State Street development cleanup efforts as generally outlined in the January 2nd, 2024 communication from the DDA CEO, and further, that the mayor and city clerk execute an agreement with Taplin Enterprises in the amount of $129,424 for abatement of asbestos for properties at 115 Pine Street, 126 West State Street, and 122 West State Street, and 120 West State Street, the properties. And further, that the mayor and city clerk execute an agreement with Pitch Companies in the amount of $111,500 for demolition of the properties, with all agreements subject to approval as to their substance by the city manager and their form by the city attorney.
That is my motion. Thank
I
you for
support
the
that
pitch.
motion.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioner Treadwell. Do we have any final comments from up here on the commission? I will just say one, I've had some emails come to me at least, I think some of us too, from people who are on different sides of the issues that are facing us on this property going forward that relate to the TIF vote and other things that I know people are talking about out there. But I've heard from people, including former DDA member who's very opposed to extending TIF and others, that this is an environmental site that needs to be cleaned up and that it is an abandoned building. So while I appreciate that there is technically time to kick it down the road, I'm not sure that having an empty building just sitting on Pine Street is and when we have grant funds available, is really tied to anything that there's a good reason to wait, other than it might take a month and there's construction that's going to be happening. There's going to be construction happening the next year too, because we have the other side of Grandview Parkway being torn up and other things. So it's going to be an issue, and there's always going to be construction. We live in Michigan where there's construction for 3 months of the year, and those are the only 3 months that any of us want to go out and be in public, and that's just the way we live. So everybody will vote how they will, and this could come back to us, but this seems to be a kicking the can down the road that maybe has ties to other ideas. So, anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Nay.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson,
Nay.
Commissioner Shaw,
Nay.
Commissioner Stanley,
Yes.
Commissioner Treadwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Werner,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson,
Yes.
and Mayor Shamro.
Yes, motion fails. Look forward to talking about that one again. All right, moving on here, as soon as I get the vote off my screen so I can read it. Okay, strategic planning with Liz, thank you.
should have, oh, it's taking its sweet time. I'm not sure why this isn't, it should be connecting. They are, and it should even like just connect automatically, but,
I can start from back there and.
sure, okay, I'll work on it.
Thank you. Well, we have a really nice presentation for you, but while we're getting that teed up, I can just give an overview. In your board packets, there is a request for proposal for strategic planning services that was identified through meetings with commissioners and through the governance session as a priority to move forward. And that very first important step is to issue the RFP to seek bids. And so that was published. And we do have a period for comment, so if there's something we missed in an RFP, they're never perfectly exhaustive. So if one of the bidders has questions, they can ask them by Friday, February 16th. And then we would answer those questions by Friday, February 24th, and then the deadline to submit a bid is March 1st. So we're using our time here in winter wisely. Then we will be able to interview firms in March, maybe into April, just depending on the timeline there, and hopefully be able to bring back a recommendation and a budget to the board sometime later this spring. Well, I can start with some of the scope of work.
Yeah, sorry,
Sure.
keep going.
Oh, there it's
All
coming.
right,
all right.
Just in
All right.
time, okay.
Good deal. Yeah.
It's rethinking.
Yeah,
So close, guys. We're almost there.
we're just building the excitement for this presentation, right? Let's see here. I'm sorry, I don't know that it's gonna work.
That's okay.
I
I'll just
apologize.
run through it here, and then we can make sure the slides go in the meeting minutes or online.
Yeah,
Thank you. So the goal is to develop a 5-year, we're seeking facilitation of a development of a 5-year strategic plan. There we go. And the goal is to enhance the city's long-term visionary and development strategies to better serve its residents. There's a process that goes along with strategic planning, and so I'm just going to walk you through some of those processes. First, we do an initial assessment, which is an internal assessment. So it's like a SWOT analysis of our internal structures and how we're doing our day-to-day business within our departments. So we're going to look at organizational structure. We're also going to do a situational analysis, which is a SWOT analysis or strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for our external environments, economic, social, environmental landscape of the city. We will engage our stakeholders. We will implement a comprehensive community engagement plan to facilitate discussions and gather diverse perspectives and input. We're also seeking a statistically valid community survey using random or stratified sampling methods to select a representative sample from the target population, which is our residents here in Traverse City. And the reason we're looking for a statistically valid survey is because a lot a lot of people want to participate in local government stakeholder sessions. We'll have roundtable discussions, but for whatever reason, whether that be their job or other things that are going on in their lives, can't physically come in person to participate. And so those survey opportunities will give us a chance to set a baseline, and then hopefully in 4 years, when we're looking at this plan again, we could issue that same survey and see if we've moved the needle in certain areas. We'll also be doing goal setting. We'll collaborate to establish clear and measurable goals, SMART goals, aligned with aspirations of residents. And SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. And then once we have a plan in action, and again, this is going to take some time, anywhere from a year to 18 months, but hopefully right around a year, we're going to develop action plans, detailed action plans outlining specific initiatives, projects, and timelines to achieve those goals. And that will include the development of department-level work plans. Monitoring and reporting. We're going to establish a system for ongoing monitoring of key performance indicators, providing regular reports to Commission. That will also include an updated community dashboard or scorecard that would be on our website, so anyone could see the established projects, where they stand, and anticipated outcomes of those projects. We're also going to be asking the facilitator to help us understand what's a good cadence for updates. They're going to provide a recommended cadence and framework for updating the strategic plan and ensuring its long-term viability and relevance. So the process is we're going to have evaluation criteria, which includes experience and qualifications, their particular methodology and team expertise, of course, their budget recommendation, and references. We will establish a strategic plan RFP committee, conduct final interviews, and then recommend a qualified consultant to City Commission. And the timeline we're working on right now, we've issued the RFP. The deadline for submissions is March 1st, and the contract authorization is scheduled for spring to summer of 2024. And that is my short synopsis, and I'd be happy to answer any questions either from the podium or I guess I could just stay here.
Any questions about the proposal? Go ahead, Tim.
More comment than question, but as far as stakeholder engagement, if we can maybe try to maintain more clarity than we as a city have over the past few years. Like it's fine to talk to stakeholders, but to me, our citizens are also stakeholders. So if we're talking to entity X, Y, or Z, and we put comments in a document, it would be great to be able to have a footnote or somehow that's attributed to this entity. So it's not that, oh, we've heard that we need to be doing more of this, but these folks request that we do more of it, and that's then fine to have it in there, but there's transparency to who's helping to push us in a certain direction.
Yeah, everyone's a stakeholder. I think that's really important. Everyone's a stakeholder. Everyone that lives here works here. Our institutions are stakeholders, our hospital systems, our education systems, our nonprofits, but also the individuals. And so we will work with that facilitator to make sure that we incorporate as many stakeholders who are interested in participating as possible. And again, that also goes back to the community survey. There might be individuals who are really passionate and like to share their thoughts, and they just simply aren't able to sit in a room with us while we do some roundtable discussions in person. But however stakeholder has been defined in the past, we can certainly clarify it and streamline it and make it very transparent.
Any other? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jackie.
I'd just like to say I'm really optimistic and excited about the potential for the strategic planning process. I think it's going to give us a deeper and very balanced understanding of our community's needs. It's going to be, I think, a valuable tool to actually align our goals with our resources, our people and our funds and our time, so that we maintain a focus on those goals. And I think also, particularly through the dashboard process, we have a chance for more transparency and much more accountability to the community. And so for all of those reasons, I'm very supportive of this effort.
Any other comments or questions? All right, well, thank you, Liz. We're excited about this. It's a long time coming. We appreciate you bringing this along and making it happen. Okay, well, moving on then, we're to the appointments portion of the meeting here. And we have an Arts Commission appointment. And let me see who my ad hoc was here. Oh, sorry, this is accepting the resignation of Commissioner Stanley, which I think we started talking about in November. So thank you for your service. We don't usually get that person here when we thank them. So I would take a motion then to accept the resignation and establish the ad hoc committee.
I'll make the recommendation that the resignation of Mai Stanley, effective November 14th, 2023, from the Arts Commission be accepted, and that an ad hoc interview committee be established to make recommendation regarding 4 appointments to the Arts Commission, terms expiring May 18th, 2027, seats held by Mai Stanley, Caitlin Early, Chelsea Nemi, and Joshua Hoisington, and that Commissioner Anderson, Commissioner Treadwell, and Commissioner Shaw be appointed to such committee, with Commissioner Shaw as chair.
Support.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Stanley and Pro Tem Wilson. Any discussion? Go ahead.
Just to add this to the long list of city commissions that are in search of volunteers from the community who are willing to dedicate some time to these issues. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any public comment on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. Thank you all, and thank you for your service, Mai, for that. We appreciate it. And now on to our, unfortunately, another acceptance of resignations from 2 long-serving members of the Housing Commission, Heather Lockwood and Roger Putman. They have graciously given us through April 30th, 2024, to name this as successors, but we certainly would like to form this ad hoc and get that started, and with gratitude for their service. So I would take a motion.
I'll make the recommendation that the resignations of Heather Lockwood and Roger Putman, effective April 30th, 2024, or one successor is named, from the Housing Commission be accepted, and that an ad hoc interview committee be established to make recommendations regarding 2 appointments to the Housing Commission, terms expiring November 30th, 2025, seat previously held by Roger Putman, and November 30th, 2027, seat previously held by Heather Lockwood, and that Amy Shamrow, Commissioner Mai Stanley, and Commissioner Mitchell Treadwell be appointed to such committee, with Mayor Amy Shamrow as chair.
Thank you, Heather.
Second.
Thank you, Jackie. Okay, we got a motion from Shaw and a second from Anderson. Any comments? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No, it's seeing none, it carries, and sorry, I'm waiting for my screen to clear up again. Okay, so anything that we want to report from reports and announcements? Sorry.
I don't think so, other than, well, I know the city manager has an update, but then we, of course, have
Yes,
a
the
reserved public comment.
Yep.
Thank you. I was asked to give an update on the MOU between the city, Safe Harbor, and the coalition. So the MOU was signed by all 3 entities. The county is, I believe, talking about it on Wednesday the 7th. Safe Harbor signed on 1/22. So the 3 of us met internally on January 29th and the 31st with the goal of figuring out what's next. And I think that's what everyone's asking for, is what next? And that's what we've been working on. So there will be a study session on Monday, the 12th, and we are working on a presentation that's going to concern, among other things, the concerns from the public comment and the emails that we've received. So to address those concerns up front, and again, what potential solutions there may be for those concerns, or just to lay them out. A timeline of different processes that may take place. We're dealing with kind of an if-then. So if this happens, then what happens next? And so we're going to lay out that timeline for either an extension of the current special land use permit, or a new special land use permit. And again, nothing's happened yet. The city has not voted on anything outside of just the MOU to allow us to talk. And I will be thanking Chet Janik in advance for giving that presentation. We are actually actively working on it right now. So the 12th was really the earliest feasible time that we could put it together and make sure that we felt comfortable with the content and making sure that we're addressing concerns along with potential solutions and timelines.
Great. Thank you for that update. We look forward to the study session next week to get more into that. Okay, so now we will move on to public comment, and this is somewhat rare of an incident, but we're really excited about it. We have a reserved public comment, and just so everybody knows, any citizen can go to the clerk's office and reserve this, and it gives you 15 minutes of reserved public comment time. But I'm especially excited today because we have Gladys Munez, talking about our sister city program with Koka City, Japan, and the Goodwill mission trips that that there's been led there, and I know a lot of public has participated, including my former Spanish teacher. And so we're going to welcome you up to the podium to make your presentation, and you can share with us what the most recent trip was like. I'm excited to hear.
And Ms. Munoz, I'm so sorry that the slides are not working. I really wish they were, because I know you're really enthusiastic about your trip, and we're grateful for it. But you can help us use our imagination as you speak.
Yes,
Thank you.
Would we be able to
It
have?
is also in the packet.
I was
the
going to say, would we be
slides.
able to have that shared publicly? So yeah, it's in the
Yeah,
packet,
anyone can
so.
go online and look at the packet and see those slides. You
Can I
can close
close
that,
this?
sure.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, let's adapt then.
Right,
Can you hear me?
we
Yes.
can.
It's okay, thank you. Yeah, again, my name is Gladys Munoz. I'm originally from Puerto Rico, moved here to Traverse City 36.5 years ago. So right now, my work is as a certified bilingual medical interpreter. And before coming to Traverse City, I lived in Japan 3 years. So when I came here, I heard something 36 years ago about some kind of relationship, and some people were coming from Japan. But during these 36 years, I have been 3 times. I have or read something or heard something. And that's not enough, no? So this past summer, my son told me that he have read something in Facebook about looking for people to go to Japan for this sister city relationship. And I said, well, check it out. So we looked into it, and I was like totally amazed. We were able to make it in October. The slides that we had to show you is a little bit of the history of how this came to be. So in 1968, the then Governor Romney signed an agreement with the governor of Shiga Prefecture in Japan. And what is a prefecture? That was my first question. So it's like a state. So United States have 50 states. Japan has 47 prefectures. And Michigan is a state, Shiga is a prefecture. So we made this agreement based on a common issue, and it was that Shiga surrounds the only big freshwater lake that Japan has, and Michigan is surrounded by 4 out of 5 lakes, okay? So that was what united us to make this agreement. Let me see. Let me follow my little notes here. In '69, then cities began to make agreements. And Traverse City made an agreement with a city in Shiga, which at that time was Tsuchiyama. But for different reasons, the place grew, people left. They united some of these cities into the big city of Koka. Just like Traverse City would unite with Acme or Sutton's Bay or Kingsley, and all of a sudden here we are all in the big Traverse City. So that's what happened. And in 2005, there was again a re-agreement of this relationship. Based on this relationship, each city makes their own activities. And here we have like
the odd years. Last year was 2023, so that's an odd year. Traverse City, well, Michigan sends a delegation to Shiga. The even years, Japan sends a delegation to Michigan. So last year, it was the first year after COVID that there was a delegation going. And it was also the 55th anniversary of this agreement. So it was a big thing. We were 45 people from Michigan that went down there. And 3 days we stayed with families. We met the mayor, we met the governor, we met the commissioners. We visited the high school, and the kids, the calligraphy club gave us a show us how to write our names and all that. And we went to an elementary school, and the principal actually played the koto for us and sang, and they gave us all this. They had a PowerPoint about how they work with the parents' help to teach of what they do to their students, and also to make them understand the importance of the community and the work that is done in their city. That was an amazing experience. And then we did the touring part. Now we visited different places. They have a lot of movement into ecological, taking care of the environment there. And also, because as a medical interpreter, it was a big eye-opener for me. We went to the government center, and just like down here, you have your clerk. Each one has, your little name on the top of what that office is about. They have the same thing in Japanese, and on the bottom is in Portuguese. Everything is in Portuguese. So I asked, what is going on here? And they said, well, we have a lot of relationship with Brazil, and they bring workers with their families to work there in the automobile industry, pharmacy, and other things that they have there. But they have them there, but the government has made it easy for them to feel accepted and be part of the community. So the signage is all in both languages, and you go to the parks, and the signages there are also in both languages. That was a big eye-opener for me, okay? And a very positive one. The other thing was the library. We went to visit the library, one of the libraries, and they had an area that says Español, Portuguese, English. And they have books for the children and material for their parents, because the majority of the people that have moved there are from Brazil and speak Portuguese, but they also have a large group of people that come from Peru, and they speak Spanish. So it was very interesting, considering that Traverse City, we have a large Hispanic community and a large Ukrainian community, and we have no signage of any kind that demonstrates that. So that's part of my little thing, being an interpreter. The other part was the families took us, we talked with each other, we all went to different families, but when we gathered together, we have all been taken to a road that goes over, on a bridge, over a little river, and it had been named Traverse Road.
Oh, that's great.
In honor of our agreement and our relationship for all these years. And it was filed with cherry blossoms. Oh. It was amazing. And also in the front of the governmental center, they have a monument with writing that talks about the agreement between Shiga and Traverse City. And so we were talking when we came back, what are we going to do here? we need to do something about this. And considering that next year, the delegation is coming from Japan and the governor is coming too with them, it might be a good, what is the wording that you use? It's not a proposal. I would like to make a recommendation of what can we do as a city to memorialize, to present to the community that we have a long-standing relationship with this city in Japan. And that is not something that happened in the past, it continues to happen, okay? So we were thinking about maybe we can, we can put a tree with a plaque at the Botanic Garden, or we can put a plaque in front of here, of the government center, or have a trail named Coca Trail. We began kind of brainstorming, and I just want to bring it to you because I know there's people here that would love to work into something like this, but obviously it's a city thing, and we need your approval and we need your, yes, let's go on and put something here. Maybe you don't have the time to do it because you have a long agenda and other things to do, but there's people here that have gone to Japan that are really interested in doing something. And that's my proposal here for you all.
Then we'll say, yes, let's go ahead and do that.
Do we have a motion here? Yes. Any questions or anything? We were really excited. It was a very positive experience. And in the past, we have had students going, and we have had teachers too. And the University of Michigan is really involved there. There, in the big lake, in the Lake Biwa, there's a boat. This looks like the Mark Twain kind of boat, but it's the Michigan, and it goes up and down that lake. You know, so there's a lot of things that they have done. And the other one was meeting with the town people. It was a very humbling experience. It was a very simple, very from the heart. There were families with little kids, older people, and they just wanted to know who we were and to hear what we had to say about Traverse City. And then they were really excited about sharing with us their own culture. And so we sang folk songs in Japanese with them. They taught us a dance, and we all danced together. It was a very simple, but really from the heart. And doing something like that is not like high-end, something that is really from the people. That was what really touched us. And that's what I would like to convey to you, that this relationship is very important. And it would be great, I don't know if the schools are going to continue doing this, but this would be a great thing to continue. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, and first, yes and yes.
Yes.
So, and thank you for doing that in such a timely way. We had the delegation here a few years ago, and were able to get them out in the public quite a bit, but I love these ideas, and I think that's something we can work with you and your fellow group members on to make sure that we do something really wonderful next year when we have our visitors come.
I mean, this year, 2024.
Oh, this year, sorry.
So
I keep forgetting it's 2024, sorry.
Yes, I'm going to hand out this because I just found it. This is a press release from the governor of Shiga. He's going to have a presentation, it's virtual in English and Japanese, about his state and what he is proud of and what they are looking for. And it is very interesting. It says, in order to realize a sustainable society, he says, Shiga Prefecture is promoting initiatives that contribute to a new affluence, in quotation marks, and happiness that is not just about present objects or money. One of the symbols of this new affluence is health. And so I just want to share this.
Thank you, yes, please, we'll pass them out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Really quick, Gladys, we're gonna, does anybody have any questions before we let her go? No, we thank you so much for that presentation, and we really look forward to working with you all. handouts here. Okay, well, now we will make some time for some general public comment, if anybody has any. Please feel free.
Yeah, I'll state the rules for public comment. Please indicate your name and address. If you would, state if you're a city resident, non-city resident, or a city business owner. We have a 3-minute time allotment. When your time has elapsed, the timer will beep. And finally, we just ask that all language be respectful to everyone. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Megan Wick. I live at 436 Washington Street on the 400 block, just around the corner. I'll also be replacing Roger Putman, who's resigned as the Safe Harbor liaison for the Boardman neighborhood. The City Commission is currently examining whether Safe Harbor should be a year-round shelter in hopes that this will address issues with camping in the Pines. And while an emergency shelter to protect the unhoused from the elements is a critical component, it is not a solution in itself. The City Commission is, how I feel, is fast-tracking a Band-Aid for a much larger and complex issue without any type of comprehensive plan. I've read the special land use permit documents, and I've taken a 3-hour tour of Safe Harbor. And just a couple of things that I noted is that the city code 1364-02 and specific standards for emergency shelters outlined in the city code 1364-08 says that the management plan shall establish a maximum length of stay which clients may be accommodated. When I visited Safe Harbor, I specifically asked about maximum length of stay because you recognize the individuals that are going through our neighborhood, and they told me that there is no maximum length of stay. The SLUP states that the operator cooperates with the Community Transitional Housing Program and has created, through partnerships with other agencies, an ongoing housing assistance program. And Safe Harbor does have 2 meeting spaces designated for their guests. However, their staff told me that they have very few of their guests with case managers, and there's no regular presence of other agencies to assist with housing. Safe Harbor's crime prevention plan, outlined also in these documents, says that actively talking to their guests about being good neighbors is their number one way of a successful way to prevent crime or related issues. I can tell you that this is not working. When I visited Safe Harbor and just a week ago, I shared many of the concerns that we have in our neighborhood, personally about crime and safety, and the Safe Harbor staff person told me that they can't control what happens outside of Safe Harbor. And the SLUP states that the pedestrian impact of Safe Harbor to the Boardman neighborhood will be substantially less than previous uses of the building, such as the Boys and Girls Club. And I'm very familiar with the usage of that. I volunteered there when I was in high school. The Boardman neighborhood actually has a constant flow of pedestrian traffic that loiters in our alleys, harasses children at school bus stops, litters alcohol bottles, cigarettes, hypodermic needles from drug use, and human waste, such as urine and feces. And my personal experience with that is a man coming into my yard, exposing his genitals to my youngest son, who is 4, and urinating in our yard. So I think the city really needs to take a hard look at this and see how it's impacting these neighborhoods. As a taxpayer and a resident, I'm asking the City Commission to hold open forums, collect stakeholder input from all the groups that are involved, and the surrounding neighborhoods as well. I care about the homeless
Ms.
population.
Wick, thank you for your comments. Your time's elapsed.
We'll
Thank
give you just a second to finish. It sounds like you're
Yeah,
finished your
I
sentence.
care about the homeless population. I also care deeply about this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wick. Please hold applause so everyone feels comfortable talking.
Hello, I'm Charles Meek, live at 212 Boardman Avenue. Thank you for these few moments to share some thoughts on a complex issue, the focus of which is Safe Harbor. From 1980 through 2020, except for some active duty years in the Navy in Japan, I lived in and near Chicago. For the last 26 years of those, I volunteered every Thursday for overnight shifts at shelters like Safe Harbor, making lunches, doing laundry, keeping the shower lines moving. Sometimes I mediated arguments, discouraged fights, and called the police when I needed to. But more often I just sat with and listened to guests who simply needed to talk to someone. Since moving here in late 2020, I have also volunteered at Safe Harbor. If anyone here this evening has not worked a shift there, I urge you to, if only to gain perspective. You'll see firsthand that safe shelter, housing, is but one thread in the tapestry. Other threads weave in as well: mental health, physical health, addiction treatment, meaningful work, hope, the basics of life that give each of us a fighting chance at happiness and self-worth. In my professional life, I design and implement ways to bring private capital to complex environmental issues such as PFAS and brownfield remediation. There's federal and state money available, of course, but I specialize in private and corporate foundations that focus on the environment in their mission statements. My role is to integrate every possible resource in innovative ways. I'm still amazed by the resources in private capital markets that no one has thought to pursue. I believe a similar strategy is worth considering here, and I would be honored to contribute my time and insights to the effort. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Matt Bullock. I'm a city resident at 229 Wellington Street, and I am a business owner of a company called Tentcraft that employs a number of city residents. And I'd like to thank you all for your service on the commission. It truly is public service. And for the city staff, there are a lot easier jobs you could have. So I fully recognize that there are no easy solutions to complex problems, but I have two concerns about the expansion of Safe Harbor. The first is that I believe it's counter to the letter and the spirit of the agreement of the special land use permit in, I believe, 2017. I was approached, and the second is that I believe the Boardman neighborhood is disproportionately bearing the negative impacts of homelessness, which is a very complex issue for our entire community. I was approached early on, before Safe Harbor occupied the current location, about being part of a group to create a indoor practice facility for soccer and for softball, and because there isn't one currently, and it seemed as though the Safe Harbor train had left the station, and that's what the city wanted. This was a city building that was deemed surplus, and as a business owner, I would have loved the opportunity to buy or to rent a building for storage at below market rates, which is what I believe was given to Safe Harbor. It is a below market rate. There are many businesses that would have paid more to buy or to rent this building, and it was pitched as a life-saving measure where how different churches would host the homeless guests at different points, and this would be a central location where they could receive services. I echo Megan's comments that it is not working. I do believe that it's a if you build it, they will come type of scenario, in that the epicenter of homelessness, to my eyes, and I would defer to law enforcement, in the winter has moved to the Wellington Street area. Before Safe Harbor's current location, I believe in our location at Cass Road, I think the epicenter appeared to be around Cass Road, and on both sides of the Boardman River and the Boardman Lake, there were a lot of camps, and then there was off Keystone Road kind of a lot of visible homeless activity. Now in the summer, it has tended to, at least it's most visible to my eye at the Pines. In the winter, it is certainly around Wellington Street. We have young kids. I used to love going to the library with our young kids. The library, as the City Commission knows, is not as nice a place as it used to be, in large part, I believe, because of the homeless guests. I've observed fights with homeless individuals. People passed out. A lot of trash this weekend. We had a nice weekend. Picked up 2 or 3 big bags of trash. I cannot blame that solely on the homeless, but
Mr.
have
Bullock,
observed.
thank you for your comments.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bullock. Any other public comment? This is general public comment, so yes.
I've met some of you, but not all, so I thought I would just introduce myself. I'm Cindy Stevens, and I live at the base of Old Mission within city limits. And I've recently joined the League of Women Voters, and they've assigned me to be an observer for your meetings. So I'm here to learn and to listen to all of you and take back to the League anything that would be relevant to their policies that they might be interested in, the things that you're dealing with. So I think this is my 4th meeting, and I'm really enjoying it. I've never been that interested in local government, but I'm very appreciative of all you do, and I'm learning a lot. So thank you.
Thank you for your civic engagement.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lori Morris, and I live at 444 Webster Street, so I'm a member of the Boardman Neighborhood Association. I'm up here because I'm a pretty new resident. Unlike many of my colleagues in Boardman who've lived here for years, we moved in 8 months ago over the summer into a pretty lively neighborhood. We live right behind Silver Spruce, so there's lots of tourist activity, and I got familiar with kayak, bike, and brew, I think. Lots of activity in the summer. We have noticed very different activity in the winter, and I have come to understand that with Safe Harbor providing very much needed emergency shelter, we also have a huge impact on the Boardman neighborhood during the winter that's very different than the Boardman neighborhood we have during the summer. My concern is if you open Safe Harbor to year-round, which is not my decision, it's people that understand about how to best help the homeless in our community. There will be ramifications for the neighborhood and for the city. This is not just a Safe Harbor issue, this is an issue for city strategic planning, staffing, budgeting in terms of law enforcement, litter pickup, maintenance, and so I wanted to make sure that since you're talking about your strategic plan, this year's budget, and your staffing, that the relationship between Safe Harbor expansion and city responsibility to its residents is taken into consideration. Thanks for hearing me out.
Thank you.
Hi, Kelly Bullock. I live at 229 Wellington Street, and I'm echoing a similar concern. It seemed the first time Safe Harbor was proposed, the city pushed it through at lightning speed. I did not fully take into account the people, the neighborhoods you were affecting, and it seems like that is, I hope, not happening again, but it seems like things are moving at a rapid speed, and I really implore you to listen to the residents of the city and the ones that are primarily affected, the neighbors, the direct neighbors. I hate public speaking, so I'm shaking. It's for my kids. There are multiple times we play on the train at the park. There are needles in the train. A man has exposed himself to me. My kids on multiple occasions have seen people urinating in the yard. A woman was fixated on the children and has tried to get into our house multiple times and stares through the window at the children. And it just, before you make it bigger, make it year-round, invite people from all over the state to come up here. As you're making these plans to move forward, I just ask that you actually consider the residents and the taxpayers.
Thank you, Kelly.
Hi, I'm Jessica Hamilton. I'm your neighbor right across the street at 221 Boardman. Along with my colleagues and neighbors, I express a lot of concern. I'm new to Traverse City. I've been here about a year. Also have experienced some harassment, especially my kids, on the way to the bus. I do use that as an opportunity to teach compassion to my kids, and that these are our neighbors, and they're the most vulnerable neighbors. And many of us could be in those shoes. Sorry, it makes me a little emotional about that. Where I have the most concern is, and I see what Safe Harbor presents as an opportunity to not fix the problem, but be a conduit maybe to fix the problem. What I don't see are measurements of accountability. And I think that that's where I have a lack of trust in looking at an MOU when we as residents can't say, these are the outcomes that we are looking for. And I understand it takes way more than just the emergency shelter. That is a very, very small piece of the puzzle. What I'd like to see as part of the plan or as part of the conversation is who are we going to bring to the table, because it's an extraordinarily siloed approach. And it takes a professionalization, because you are dealing with people who have serious barriers that are beyond their control. And I look at how we approach policy and budgets, they're values documents. And so how we look at this problem says a lot about our values. So I ask that we continue this conversation, holistically, because they are human beings. But a lot of humans are bearing the burden of their misfortune. And you have a lot of human beings here who are willing to roll their sleeves up and help solve the problem. I just want to say I'm here to continue. I am a nonprofit fundraiser, so I can tell you that there are a lot of opportunities to bring in public and private partnership to address this issue, because there is the willingness. It's just getting all of those who are willing in the same place.
Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Rick Fulmer. I'm maybe the oldest person in the room, maybe not. We raised 5 children, and I have said to my wife on a number of occasions, and we are blessed in our neighborhood. We have older people and younger people with young children. I would be frightened to have my children think they can run into the yard without my supervision with what happens on our street. Today, I went to get a tank of gas at the gas station on Wellington and 8th Street at 3:20. Your officer can go verify this. I tried to go into the gas station and the door was locked. And as I was approaching it, someone is asking me for money. The lady finally unlocked the door and she said, "Will you stay with me until the police come? A person stole something, he's arguing with me." I have to say, this is not a community that should be dealing with these issues in this fashion. This is a very serious subject, and just making a decision that says it stays and grows without a plan is a real problem for this community and our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah Cashel. I live behind the gas station. I have a 7-year-old boy and a 3-year-old boy that cannot play in the yard by themselves. There are people who come up and stare at us. There was a man, I think it was a week and a half ago, servicing himself. I've lived in this neighborhood since I was 5 years old. I'm very proud to be a part of this neighborhood. I truly love it. I love the library. I love Hall Park. This is a part of who we are. And it's the oldest neighborhood in Traverse City. It really is a gem, okay? It's part of where we started. I think it was such a valiant thing to begin with. It was a very good idea. There was a lot of opposition about it being a socially irresponsible location. And there was a lot of good points made about you can't hide homelessness. They need to be close to resources. This might not be the spot for the resources that they need. It's just true, you know. I'm very fearful of what will happen to Hall Park in the summer. I think everybody should take a really hard look at who uses that park every summer and what's going on now. I can't imagine with the influx of kids what's going to happen. So I'm here tonight for my kids. I actually had to run down here, so I'm a little out of breath. Thank you so much for all you do, and please take a second look at this and call us in. We have opinions, you know. This is a really smart neighborhood, okay, and we're living this every day. So please take everybody's opinion into account. Don't make up your minds yet, because there's a 2-year-old and a 7-year-old behind the gas station. You know, I have bank grade locks on my doors right now. Nothing has happened, thank goodness, but, you know, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Megan Schaus. I live on 521 Washington. I am here also just kind of expressing my concerns about Safe Harbor. I have 7 small children, 12 and under, who regularly, you know, they go to TAX, they play at the playground, the railroad park. We call it the choo-choo train park, but and they have several friends. There's about 30 kids just on our block alone who do what we did when we were growing up, just played outside until the streetlights were on. I mean, it's a very active neighborhood of children. And it's become, especially this winter, we've just seen such an increase in the homeless population in our neighborhood. I mean, every morning I watch them walk down Wellington, just wrapped in blankets and on drugs and drunk and swearing and doing things that, like, is just appalling that this is going on in our neighborhood. So I'm scared. For the first time, I mean, this winter is the first time I've actually been scared. I've been keeping all my doors locked. We went to a meeting, a boardman, meeting at filling station just a few weeks ago, and the cops, our liaison spoke, I can't remember her name, but just saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that this is going on in your neighborhood. I have small children, and I don't know what I would do if I lived here. Said, I honestly don't know what I would do. It's scary. Over 50% of the calls from the police station come from Safe Harbor. And it's right in a neighborhood full of families. And these people are walking up and down our streets. They're coming to our door. I've called the cops numerous times. I've had them walking around in my backyard while I was giving my infant a bath in the sink. I'm looking out, and there's one coming through my yard. It's documented. They never even found her. She was going up and down through all of our houses. And it took them, I don't think they ever found her. I mean, this is scary stuff. And I'm just very concerned, and I know I don't have any answers. I mean, I really don't. I wish I did, but I feel like with the resources that we have, we can come together and come up with a better solution, especially not making this a year-round establishment. I mean, I think that would really, with all the kids being home all day, and they would just see things that they can't unsee. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Hi guys, I'm BJ Brick. Thank you again for at least letting us talk about this. I'm a Boardman neighbor as well, live at 205 Wellington. I'm probably one of the few fifth-generation TC. My great-grandparents grew up in the Boardman neighborhood. I actually had an uncle that was a resident at the state hospital prior to it closing and them essentially opening the doors. My family has been actively involved in mental health issues, adults with developmental disabilities in our area since the state hospital closing and a little bit before then. We currently house over 50 people, and you just don't have this issue there. There is definitely services available, and I don't know if it's being provided, but the life skills, some of the things that were talked about by one of the gentlemen here, it feels like is just a piece that may be missing. But if you're the average of all those that you surround yourself with, what we're doing in concentrating all the homelessness in this one neighborhood, you know, it ultimately feels like we are basically solving a 9-county regions issue, and it doesn't seem like that probably is the right solution. You know, if some of the dialogue that came out was actually how many people are from Traverse City that are continually using the services, that would be like a great starting point. I've volunteered at the church-based Safe Harbor initiatives prior to it moving to where it currently is, and anecdotally there was a very large contingent that were not from our area even. So I am nervous that if you build it, they will come is actually happening, and maybe you guys have more data on that information that I'm not privy to. But the reality is, although it's a complex solution or a complex issue, and it's obviously people that are in need, and nobody wants anybody to sleep outside in the winter, having it be year-round without, I guess, exhausting all options doesn't seem like the right move. It feels a little bit like we're regressing. I mean, there could be other options. There could be houses in each neighborhood that where you actually know who's there, and it's not just a completely transient group with no tie. It's a really scary place to be in the winter, watching people go through your neighborhood that you don't know who they are. So I just hope we can slow it down and have a more
Thank you
in-depth
for your
conversation.
comments.
Thank you, Mr. Brick. Any other comments tonight? Seeing none, I would just say thank you everyone for sharing tonight. We appreciate that, especially ahead of the study session that's coming next week. We hope if you can't join us here again next week, you can watch and see what will be presented. As you might have seen, Liz furiously taking notes here, writing down everyone's comments, as well as I think some of the issues that were brought up, such as percentage of people who are from Grand Traverse County, et cetera. There's some of that data that will be available and some of these ideas to kind of, I can see why people would think this is siloed when this is all they're hearing about, to get a little bit of a slightly bigger picture of what's going on in the region. That's not to say that we're not going to update with information and questions that were gathered here and continue the conversation. Next week will not be the last time we talk about it. It's a study session to introduce some of the information that we have and continue this dialogue over the next few months, 2 years likely. This is a problem that isn't going away. So we really do appreciate the Boardman, especially Boardman residents who showed up tonight to share, to keep us in the conversation and to keep us in this dialogue. So thank you very, very much for coming tonight and sharing, and those of you who spoke and those of you who are just here, and we see you here as well. So thank you for that. With that, I will turn back to our commissioners. Do you guys have any final thoughts for the week? All right. Any final thoughts from us? All right. With that, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for joining us.
Going into
tonight.
closed session.
Oh yeah, we're going to closed session. We're not officially adjourning, but I don't think, are we anticipating
No
action?
action afterwards.
No action after. So sorry, I forgot about that fun part coming up. So
I almost forgot too. I was like, ooh.
All right, Peter's here, so I'm gonna find him. And you will go in the conference room.
Oh, okay.
Only two. You were right.
Oh, no.
conclusion here? Yeah. Okay, looks like we've got a majority here. We have returned from closed session with no action being taken, so we will adjourn for the evening. Thank you, everyone. I know, it's really silly, right? That's why I said I really just need like 3 or 4 of you.
No, I was laughing.
Somebody-